Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. This is our first Friday episode. And as I said before, I may have mentioned in the first episode of season 2 that we're going to be releasing 2 episodes a week, one on Monday, one on Friday. So this is our first Friday episode. And because I wanted the Friday episodes to be more chill with a friend and have fun, really just catching up with a friend, but also talking about something that relates to business. I thought that it would be fun to have a conversation with a dear friend of mine who I've known for, I want to say, over 10 years, Durdana Karim. We reconnected when I came back from New York a couple of years ago, and I enjoyed the conversations that her and I were having when we went on a recent hike one day. And we were talking about consistency and what that has looked like within our lives in our 20s and even now in our 30s. And how has the definition of consistency evolved over time? And it'd be great to have a conversation about it on the podcast because I believe that consistency is a huge buzzword in the entrepreneurship space, and it can be difficult, I think, to get to a place where you feel consistent. And consistency is a broad word, but the ways that you create consistency in your business, in yourself, and how you want to show up, all the ways that consistency show up for you, it all blurs together. And so I wanted to have a conversation about it so that hopefully it gives you a better understanding, and maybe not a better understanding, but just a different perspective about how to think about consistency if you're someone that struggles with consistency in your business, and maybe you attribute your not being consistent to not being where you'd like to be in your journey. I mean, I know that I've done that myself, but I hope that you enjoy this conversation that I had with my friend Durdana. Let us know what you thought. Being that this is a season 2, I would like to thank everybody who was here with us for season 1 and listening and providing reviews and ratings. And if you have friends that you feel will benefit from listening to one of the episodes, please send it their way. And I am really grateful for your support in that. If you'd like to be the first to know about new podcast episodes, remember to sign up to our newsletter at beabosscoaching.com. And I'm excited to continue growing this community and growing the podcast and making new episodes and having y'all be a part of this journey with me. All right, I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. I am really stoked today simply because I get to talk to one of my really good friends. And this is one of those episodes where I really want to just talk to a friend and talk to them about something that I think impacts both business and in life, but we'll get into it. But today I have my friend Durdana. And Durdana is a lawyer where she works at Stubbs, Alderton, and Markiles LLP. So I'm really excited. I've known you for so long, but can you really quickly talk about just who you are for the audience, and then we can jump right into just talking about what we're going to talk about, which is redefining consistency. We'll just go into it however we want
What
to.
does that mean? Yeah. Well, thank you. And I'm just really grateful to know B for such a long time. We initially worked together, oh my gosh, like 10 something years ago
Yeah.
at a legal firm that practiced disability rights. And, I went in through the law practice. She went in through her master's in social work. And here we are
Yeah.
doing something very, in a sense, doing something somewhat similar, but very different. So I practice corporate law. I'm a fifth year practicing attorney at Stubbs Alderton. Most of my work has been working with smaller businesses, privately held companies, from the startup phase to getting financing and both VC and debt financing, and then heavy M&A, mergers and acquisition practice when your company is ready to be sold or bought out. Or you want to acquire another company. We're practicing a lot of that. And then, to the stage where if the company wants to go public, all of the process that are there. But because, both of us are women of color, we really, I think, gravitates toward, and I, a child of immigrant parents who came to the US, I gravitate towards wanting to support people in our community. And so that's why I'm very passionate about trying to support small businesses, women owned businesses, businesses in the BIPOC community. So I love everything that B is doing.
Oh,
And yeah,
thanks, Durdana. You're so
excited to be
sweet.
here.
You're so sweet. No, I really appreciate reconnecting with you because as
Yeah.
you said, we met it's 2023. I want to say we met 2011. I want to say maybe somewhere around there.
Yeah. Like we
And
just graduated from undergrad at that time
you're
and
right. We
started
had just
working. Yeah.
graduated. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh, just thinking back to that time, I feel like so much has happened. I mean, obviously, like we've gone on to get our own careers and degrees, and like you're a full blown lawyer now. Like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And so it's been really fun reconnecting. I think after coming back from New York, I know we reconnected and just getting to hang out with you, like hiking and learning more
Yes.
about your work and the fact that you're really passionate about women of color and businesses, small businesses. So I know we've had some really good conversations and I wanted I wanted to talk about we recently went on a walk and we went
Mhm.
hiking. So me and Dordana love to go hiking, and she's one of the few that will go with me really early because
Morning people.
we're morning
Yes.
people. Nobody else wants to go early with me to go hiking because everyone's like, gets up at 9 or whatever. And I'm like, at 9, I'm already back home. I already had breakfast.
Breakfast, you have everything done.
Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
like one of the few people that will go early with me. And when we talked last time, when we caught up during our hike, I remember just talking about consistency and what that has looked like for us, but then also what it looks like when we fall out of it. And so, but yeah, I mean, I'm just curious about your own definition of what consistency looks like. How do you apply it in your life? Like how do you think about
Yeah.
it and like how do you apply it or how does it play out for you in your life?
Yeah. I think as you get older,
Mhm.
you realize, you know, what true consistency means,
Yeah.
and that it isn't something that you need to do on a everyday, daily basis in the same manner over and over.
Mhm.
um, I think, and you may know this too. We come from such, I don't know if it's an immigrant kind of
Mhm.
mentality
Yeah.
of you need to work hard, you need to do this, you need to be a perfectionist, you need to be overproductive. And so for me, consistency was always like, oh, if I don't do something, if I'm not waking up early in the morning,
Mhm.
I'm not being productive.
Mhm.
And now I've wasted my day. And what have I done if I wake up a little bit later?
Yeah.
Rather than what I've realized more as I'm getting older, I have gone through therapy and I'm trying to realize, I've had a lot of life transformation that has happened in the last year.
Yeah.
And so I've realized, consistency is about making sure you are feeling as positive as you can and working towards something whether it's a short term goal, a long term goal, working towards something that makes you feel good.
Mhm.
Ultimately, at the end of it, I don't know if that's kind of what you view it
I
as,
love
or like,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love what the where you add to this consistency of working towards something positive that makes you feel good, right? I think it
Mhm,
creates another level of viewing it from a point of view that feels more genuine to you
mhm,
and closer to how it feels good to you rather than a general broad definition that maybe you're not connected to. So,
mhm,
yeah, I
mhm,
really like that. I wanted to define that just because I feel like everyone has, like you said, like, we wake up every day, we have these notions about what consistency looks like in our everyday and how we should practice it. We should get up at the same time every day. We should work out 5 times a week. We should, even with business, we should post every day, at least
mhm,
once a day, and I I've always had this battle with consistency because it's something that I know I could, well, I used to think I need to get better at, and it was in the context of my business, right? Like, "Oh, I need to
mhm,
post more. I need to send out more emails, and I need to go networking more." But one of the examples, just like how I've redefined consistency for me, and I don't know, I think I shared this with you last time, right? Where we were walking, where I was thinking more about it as not, oh, I need to set a routine. Like my routine is
mhm,
every day, 5:45, get up and go to the gym. It's like it's not so much routine, but I've shifted that definition to mean more of knowing, adjusting the definition to fit my needs, but creating a rhythm rather than,
mhm. I like that, a rhythm.
yeah, creating a rhythm rather than a routine, I guess.
Mhm, mhm.
Like, sometimes the rhythm changes,
Yes.
And so
And
yeah.
I was just going to say, in terms of, you had mentioned, I think, in our discussion about being active and exercising and feeling healthy and being healthy. And I was, I think, reading something somewhere about, for women, in terms of what consistent exercise means for us. We have a whole cycle every month that changes
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we are much more, wanting to go and exercise because we have that energy. And then some weeks we don't. And then
Yeah.
that's what does that mean for us? Because we're not, compared to, I'm sure men go through hormonal changes, but we go through a hormone change every month. And so our cycles kind of affect how we can even exercise. And so, or how our moods are. We may feel better on certain times of the month and not feel as good, and wanting to be as social in other parts of the month. I had to realize, I was like, oh yeah, I definitely go through that, and that it's okay. And I may take a week or two not being able to be as active as I'd want to be.
Oh my god, I'm
Yeah, and
so
and it
glad.
fits into that whole rhythm because we are in a cycle.
Exactly, wow. I'm so glad that
Yeah.
you said that, wow. I never, you know, of going through a cycle, like, my cycle is not on the day, on the spot, like,
Mhm, mhm,
sometimes it's 28 days, sometimes it's
mhm.
29, sometimes it's 30, like,
Yeah.
and it moves, right? Like, it moves.
Change it.
It, like, sometimes when the cycle starts, it starts a little later, sometimes it starts a little sooner, and I never
Mhm,
thought about it that way where, you know, if we apply consistency to the way that we view, like, our cycles and, like, the way that we view how we move through our
yeah.
cycles every month and what feels good, and then
Mhm,
aligning ourselves to that, I feel like we would be able to view consistency or redefine consistency in a way where it's not so structured and so rigid. Like
Structure. Yeah, exactly.
it's more flowy, and to redefine it that way. Ooh, that's so good. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to trying to meet the goals that I wanna hit, like, for example,
Mm,
I I remember when I started I've always had this relationship with my body where it just goes up and down, like, I'm always like, "Oh, okay, I don't feel good, I need to start eating better and working out more." And then, I get into the moments where there's a lot going on, and so I'm
mm,
trying to take care of myself, but I'm also in that moment, I wanna honor me and what that feels like
mm.
or what that looks like. Sometimes it's like, "Oh, let me rest today," or let me order out
Yeah,
or something. And so I realized, like, I used to always go into these, like, waves of
because it's a waste.
yeah, like, waves of just not feeling good, not feeling good. And then was like, "Okay, well, I don't wanna view exercising as, like, just trying to, like, lose weight or whatever, but I it
Mhm,
helps me to kinda keep not so much of a huge wave like this, but more of a
mhm,
balanced type of, like, energy,
mhm.
my body and exercise, but more about my mental health." And
Yeah,
that shifted the way that I saw consistency just because it wasn't I view it as, like, what's more important to me, and what was more important to me was keeping my mood levels stable, keeping my like, whenever I felt depressed or, like, had a lot of anxiety, like,
mhm,
that didn't serve me, and even though working out in general is always good for you, but if you're looking at it through, like, "Oh, I want to, be able to eat a cheeseburger or whatever, like, and that's why you're working out." I guess that could work, but consistency changed for me as soon as I shifted what matters to me, and what matters to me was my mental health. So, like, now it's like, I don't even care if I, work out for 45 minutes and run and do, like, heavy exercise. Like, sometimes consistency will look like Monday, yes, I might do 45 minutes of working out. Wednesday, I might do 20 minutes of walking, like, it doesn't
mhm,
matter, right? Like, I still was able to get myself to the gym. Today, I went to the gym and I literally just listened to a podcast and did 20 minutes. I wanted to run, but for some reason, my body wasn't feeling it, and so I just walked. I walked for 20
mhm.
minutes, and then I was like,
Yeah,
"Okay, well, I guess that's what I did today. I was consistent."
yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, if I think back, trust me, in my 20s, I was one of those gym, like, rats, right?
gym.
I was in there 2 hours of a day, every day, and you also had the time and ability to do that, so that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
And it was just something that I don't know if it's a form of addiction. It's not like it's a superficial addiction, right? Like I loved going there and it made me feel good. And, I had this whole very superficial view of like, oh, I want to look this way. And um, now as I get older, I've realized like, and maybe this might be something related to my family genetics. I have been prone to arthritis. And so running probably wasn't the best thing for me when I was younger.
Yeah.
And now, I can't run at the same way. That's why I'm having turmeric tea to help me with inflammation um trying to realize maybe from COVID too when things were closed, trying to realize what I really valued was getting my endorphins up. And so that can
Mhm,
still happen if I go on a hike, if I go
mhm.
take my dog for a walk, if I am also just walking on the treadmills or doing more low impact um exercises. And and seeing it as more of a whole body, your mental, your physical, everything, so that you're not just you don't feel like the dread. Because
Yeah.
some days now I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel a dread wanting to go to the gym. It's not the same.
Yeah.
It used to be. It's so hard to um wanting to do that. But when you change your mindset and to say, hey, this is something I want to do because I feel good after, rather than I'm trying to look a certain way or lose a certain amount of pounds, it helped. And also to feel like, oh, I can exercise this, I can go to hike. It doesn't have to be
Right.
something specific. You have to use a trainer or something.
I know. I think that that's like the best way to for me to think about consistency and like an example about how to think about consistency in a way where it's not so rigid is that if you want to be
Mhm,
consistent, like let's say you want to be active 4 times a week,
mhm,
it doesn't
mhm,
mean that you have to go run 4 times a week, 20 minutes a
mhm,
week, and then kettlebells after, and then, planks, and then like decompress after. Like it doesn't
okay.
like you
Yeah.
could do that, but if your body's not there or if you're like whatever circumstance you have going on, maybe you only have 20 minutes to go to the gym that day and you
Yeah.
just want to walk. That's still consistent. Maybe it's not 45 minutes of hardcore like CrossFit, but you still go, you get your heart pumping, you take a walk, maybe you listen to a
Yeah.
podcast. Like that to me was like the best thing. I was like, okay, let me listen to this podcast. It was really interesting and I just walked. This is great. Like I still went to the gym. And I think
Mhm,
when it comes to consistency, however, wherever we want to apply it in our lives, whether it's social media, it's thinking about other creative
mhm,
ways to still be consistent, but maybe not in a rigid way, right? So like
mhm, mhm,
one way I think about it, like today, like if you want to post, a lot of people think about social media and like consistency means posting, right? But what if it just means you go and like and comment on 10 different posts? Like you don't have to
mhm,
go and specifically post, but you're still active and you're still supporting other people or maybe your clients or maybe your friends or your peers, like if you're a business. And that's
yeah,
it. Like it doesn't mean you need to like that's your form of being consistent. So how can you be creative around what consistency
mhm,
means? And so that's why I like to think about the exercise analogy because it could be hiking, it could be running, it could be like jumping jacks or
mhm, yeah,
whatever as long as even if you want to create consistency like be active 5 times a day, 5 times a week, great. Like you can be active and that means going for a walk and that's being active. Like it doesn't have to be a whole thing. So, but I'm curious, are there any times in your life where that was hard to do? Like consistency was just like, like I hate doing this, I don't want to do this anymore. Like let me just like watch trash TV and
all the time. Um, Definitely. I mean, I've dealt with burnout, which has happened when I was in law school, and then also has happened in the last year or two. I think COVID just really made everyone realize that they were working way too much and
yeah,
working way, being very overproductive. And
yeah.
I had to, I didn't know my symptoms of burnout were actually very physical, where I like had a lack of
Mhm.
motivation. I couldn't, I had a lot of physical symptoms too: inflammation, anxiety, just not being able to sleep well. That I had to work through a lot. And so I feel like when you're in that rigid form of consistency, because I had that mentality like, oh, I need to do this. I have to develop my career, go network. For us attorneys, we do publications. And so now I think at the time, um, I was part of a board. I was like doing extra work as a board member. I was volunteering. I
Mhm.
was, doing a full time job on top of. um, trying to also network because we do a lot of different networking with our associations and help with publication. And so that's just on top of like our billable hours as
Yeah.
attorney when we have to work with clients. And I did not I did not realize that that could just completely affect me physically to a
Mhm.
point where I was not feeling well.
Mm.
And at the end of our beautiful life, like your work isn't always going to be the one that's there for you.
Yeah.
I feel like I was putting priorities on certain things that I maybe am now realizing that I want to put more priorities on myself and taking care of myself. And so once you take care of yourself, you can do all those things and maybe in limited forms. And I've experienced just this physical kind of mental symptoms of burnout. And
Yeah.
that's like the bad part of consistency
Yeah.
because I thought I was doing things that were very good for me.
Yeah.
um,
Oh, I love
but
that.
those things that I was doing was just physically hurting me. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, again, it's just this whole very like perfectionist, over productive mentality that we have where you should not rest. Resting days are not good for you. Or if you're not feeling well, just rest. And I didn't realize what resting meant.
Yeah.
I am that type of person where I'm like, well, if I don't have anything planned this weekend, like I'm gonna try to figure things out. I love lists. I don't know if that's the same way for you. Like you're trying
Yeah.
to check mark and check box these lists.
Yeah.
And I actually worked through therapy about that. They're like, well, you can also put in the list rest.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe I should start doing it.
Yeah.
That way I can check mark it
Put
that
it
I've
on your
actually,
calendar, Jordan, be
put it on
like
my calendar.
5 to
A rest
6.
day. Yeah. I mean, people I think are talking about that a lot more where they do have rest days with in the active kind of world, in the very exercise active world where
Yeah.
they have rest days, they have these cheat days, they have days where you're doing self-care days. I like to call sometimes my Sunday, like Sunday evenings, self-care days because I think before I used to have Sunday scaries where
Mm.
you've had like a nice weekend and now, oh my gosh, the evening comes in and you have to get ready for for work week.
Yeah.
And so my Sunday evenings sometimes are just about self-care and putting on a nice face mask, relaxing with wine or tea and just putting on some movie and relaxing rather than doing anything that's not going to make me ready for the next the week ahead.
I like that.
Yeah.
I feel like my rest day or wind down is Friday evening.
Mhm.
I just like look
Mm.
at I just like I'm like,
It's a
"This
nice,
is why I
yeah.
have this." What is this? Gin. I'm like, "What is this again?" Gin and soda, because I really was just, you know, I was like, "Oh, I get to hang out with my friend Durdana, and I get to record a podcast."
Yeah.
So, it's both checking
Let's make
off
it
the
fun.
list of, like, I'm catching up with my friend, winding down, and I get to record an episode for my business. Like, it's still sort of hitting all the boxes and still trying to get things done, but yeah, in terms of consistency and thinking about that, I really thought about you just because when we went on a hike, I was like, "Yeah, how do we look at consistency? How can we redefine it?" And again, I feel like one thing, if you're gonna take away anything from this episode, is that we're trying to create a rhythm, right?
Mhm.
Dance with whatever circumstance comes your way. And I mean, obviously, there are circumstances that, might create more of an impact, and those are special, right? But sometimes I feel like there's a wrench that gets thrown our way when
Mm.
we feel that when we have this fixed idea about consistency and what that looks like. And really, it's okay, well, how can we dance with this within within my means of
Mm.
what I can do and where I'm at and what my capacity is. And getting rid of that boxed in definition of
Mhm.
consistency and moving with your flow.
Your flow. Yeah, no, I love that
No, I love that
because
you shared
that's a
that.
fact. One thing I was actually going to mention that I had to train I was never a morning person.
Oh,
I had like in order for me, and I will say that's something that I've been working through with consistency is
mhm.
being continuing to be a morning person because I never was.
Yeah,
It was one of those goals that I wanted to tell myself, I feel better when I do wake up. I'm not having headaches and I feel much more rested. And so I've been able to transform my, I guess, just being able to wake up in the morning and my body to be okay with waking up in the morning and feeling good and waking up. And especially if I'm hiking because it's being outdoors and getting fresh air and getting exercise in the morning. It was definitely a transformation of like what is that consistent, because there's times where I want to sleep in a little bit more,
yeah,
and then there's days where I'm like, no, I need to get up and I can do this and I feel good.
yeah. No, there is
Yeah.
definitely that initial, I think, time when you're trying to, you know, not just redefine, but then also like why. I think when it comes to like if you do want to wake up early and like that feels like something that you want to strive for, I would say like ask why. Like why do you want to do that?
Mm,
You know?
yeah.
And that can really help you think through not just like because we have this image that like, oh, other people wake up early and they're successful, so I'm going to try and do that. So I would say no, don't look at other people in that regard. Really, why does it matter to you to wake up early? Does it make you feel good? Do you have more time during the
Mm,
day? Do you want to go to sleep early? Do you want to like have, reading time? That's for me my thing. I love to
mhm,
read in the morning. Uh,
mm.
so having that time in the morning before I sit down and do emails or client calls, like as long as I can
It helps.
put
Well,
that
yeah.
time in for me, if that means waking up early, then that's my why and that's my motivation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What's been very helpful, and I'm not very consistent at these things, is at the end of the day, like finding a way to decompress, which is,
Mhm.
taking away all your social media, your electronics.
Yeah.
And if you need to read, meditate, do some yoga,
Mhm.
find some way to just like close your mind and
Yeah.
like still your mind and not be able to have your mind go everywhere. And that's very similar to even doing something in the morning before you start your workday, because a lot of the times people are just rushing it and they're
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm going to go out in traffic, I'm going to get into the office, and here we go. But you don't have that early morning rise of,
Mhm.
I want to wake up early because I want to read. I want to wake up early because I want to meditate.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing. And
Yeah.
so, oh my gosh, I feel so much better sending an email the first thing in the morning rather than
Mm.
when I used to wake up, which was like, okay, get into the office, get my coffee, then start sending emails. Now it's like, no, I can have a little bit of more time
Yeah.
to get that started. So doing like your early morning stretches and then your night. I don't know what's the early morning version of decompressing
Yeah.
is. Yeah,
But I think it's about settling, right? It feels like, at least to me,
totally.
that's sort of the way that I feel. It's like I'm giving myself time to go work out, come back, eat breakfast, take a shower, get
Yeah,
ready,
yeah.
and
And you've done so much, but you feel good before before you like put your mind to work,
yeah.
right? You've done so
Yeah.
much, but you feel good in order to be in that mindset for work.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's what I need for me, and I know that, so and everyone's different, so whatever you need in the morning, consistency can be really helpful in just thinking about what how can consistency, I think of it, I guess it's more of a tool, like, I would say it's more of a tool rather than a goal or an aspiration. I think, like we said earlier, we all want to be consistent in area A, B, and C, but I think it's more of a tool in terms of helping us achieve what feels good for us. Uh,
Mm.
and so now that I'm thinking through that with you, like as we're talking, like, okay, yeah. But yeah, now I'm thinking it feels like a tool, and it's not a finish line. Consistency is not a finish line, but more of like why why do you want to use this tool to like help you in whatever you want to get better at or like
Mm.
put more time into or whatever.
Yeah.
I know, that's so
Yeah.
good. I was like, "Oh, yeah."
You
Like
know what? Another thing I wanted to mention, kind of when you were saying that, I feel like sometimes, and this is just what everyone does in society, right? We like to compare ourselves with others.
mm,
And so, when let's say like you are on social media, or you're looking at other people's posts and you're saying, oh my gosh, this person is posting on a daily basis, or, they're liking something on a daily basis, or they're putting something out there that can help their business.
mhm,
For me, it may be different because my work is a little different, but I also see that too, because even in my personal social media, like I'll see people post and I'm like, oh, I want to compare their life to my life. But
mhm.
realizing, especially as you get older, that that's not something that's good and healthy at all.
Yeah.
Because one person's consistency might be so different from another person's consistency. And just trying to say, maybe this is their life and maybe this can motivate me, but not in a way where it's going to make me feel so negative because I'm not able to achieve their version of consistency.
Yeah.
Because comparing can be sometimes not comparing, but maybe looking at others as a motivation
Mhm.
rather than, oh, I'm comparing them and trying to be exactly like them.
Yeah.
Motivation is good, but trying to be exactly like, what another may go through in their
Yeah.
forms of consistency is, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not always helpful.
It is because if you were a baby and you were just
Mm,
learning how to crawl, you can't just look at
yeah,
someone and think, "Yeah, like, and they're running and
let
sprinting
me do
5
that.
miles an hour, like, I can do that." No, we're still learning how to crawl,
Yes.
you know? And so, obviously, we can get ourselves to a stage where we wanna be, but it takes time, and it takes learning about yourself and, like, what your capacity is, and even if, like you mentioned, being able to look at what other people are doing, and if that motivates you, great. Like, "Oh my gosh, I wanna be there too, like, let me put myself to work." That motivates you? Okay. I guess I'm thinking more about motivation now because if
Mm,
you were to look at yourself or, like, compare yourself to others and you're like, "Oh, okay, I'm doing okay." But you can always look at how can you motivate yourself looking back at what you've done before and how can you make it better?
mm,
I feel like if you look at,
me too.
what other people are doing and it motivates you, great. And if it's like makes you feel I feel like sometimes it's counterintuitive to be like, "Oh, I'm not gonna look at what other people are doing." But then it kind of like just stops you from getting motivated. So maybe if you do want to like go on there and see what people are doing and like if it motivates you, great. I think it's all about really knowing yourself. But if you're feeling the need to stop and be like, okay, I think I can rest, taking that. And then when you're ready to taking that time to rest, and then when you're ready to keep going, really looking at your past performance to motivate you, like, how can
Mm,
you be better? Um,
I
anyway,
do
that sort
like
of went
that.
into motivation a little.
No, although I do like saying, and this can tail back to consistency of, looking back at your practices in the past, seeing
Mhm.
like, oh, maybe I have improved. I have become more consistent with whatever business activity, personal activity that I may be doing. And so, that actually in therapy, we've talked about this, about looking back at what you've improved so much and then
Mhm.
how you've used certain skills and resources that you've learned. So, through this and I didn't even realize like, oh wow, so I have improved. So I have been being more consistent than I have been before, and my consistency is so much more different than it was in my 20s when
Yeah.
I felt like I had to achieve certain things at a certain time period.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, no, it's more about feeling good and positive, and then wanting to do that more because I am feeling good and positive.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I love that.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Oh, I know. Like,
Yeah.
I just feel really
Thank you.
good to have been reconnected, and I hope we can continue these conversations and talk about life and, like, business and, how we can or I know that you've been wanting to start your own business and go into your own practice, so whenever you're ready to do
I
that, I'm
have.
here. You know.
You are a very good resource actually to look at. And I have looked into certain things that you've written. I listened to your podcast, which is
Mm.
amazing. If anyone is out there and is not listening to your podcast,
Oh.
such a good podcast because afraid there are other podcasts that I've seen for like startup companies
Mhm.
because I like to just be in the know and
Yeah.
know the certain language when you're speaking with clients.
Yeah.
And I don't I don't actually see a podcast specifically addressing like women owned businesses, and because you come from like a Latina community, like I don't see that. And I love kind of the things that you've talked about. I loved the podcast just about you and where you came from, and when you were talking about the job that we had worked at, I was like, oh my gosh, I felt the same way, that
Yeah.
this was my first job getting into the corporate world. I felt so official,
Yeah.
just going through where you were, and I was like, oh, I love this. Amazing.
Yeah.
I just want to hear more voices of people from certain communities that I just don't hear still in my field.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, before we close, I would like to get I know so since we worked together in this firm a long, long, long time ago, what is a story from that place that you
Oh
can
gosh.
isn't it a wild place when you go think about it?
Yes.
Like, is there a story that we can share or that you feel comfortable sharing? Like, we don't I to be honest, I can always edit this out.
I'm trying to remember if there are any like stories to share. I just remember because that was just one of those first jobs that you get out of college, but
Mhm.
we got out of college like when the recession was still happening. So
Yeah.
we were overeducated individuals working at underpaid
Oh my
work.
god.
Um,
And you know
but
it's so funny
it
that
was
you
amazing.
say
I
underpaid?
I
It's so
sorry, go
funny
on.
that you say underpaid because I remember, like, getting my first paycheck from there, and I felt so rich.
You right. You were like, oh my gosh, that was a thing. But
This
also like
$800.
nowadays about inflation and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, for me, what I did enjoy about it was that I met a lot of really great people
Mhm.
who came from very different backgrounds, and we connected, and we would have, especially our small group. Uh, it was just really nice because there was a lot of women who were just they came from amazing backgrounds, and they had a passion for certain work that we were doing at the time. And um, I just remember also having like potlucks and being at work, the entire, like, you'd have to be in the office, right, every single day at that time. And now I cannot go back to the office more than 3 times a week. And even then, that's a stretch. It's kind of like, oh, I don't want to interact with too many people. But at the time, that was just kind of really nice experience.
Yeah.
The fun stories were the clients that called in. Those were the like very interesting clients. We have clients from like all over the US,
Right.
and they're getting social security benefits.
Yeah.
Very interesting set of clients. Some of them would certainly cuss you out and you had to learn. Do you remember that? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I mean, I
I remember I had to
definitely
learn to
got
just
cussed
like
out.
stay.
Not
Yes, yes, yeah. And now I'm like, you know what? So
hey,
thank God I don't do that now.
I mean, yeah, I think that was my
Yeah.
very first experience where I it was the first time where I interacted and engaged with clients for the first time, and this was
Mhm.
prior to my social work
Same.
degree. Yeah,
Yeah. I was so scared talking to people on the phone at that time. Like, oh my God, what do I say? Like, how do I do it?
yeah,
It
yeah.
was, and definitely knowing how to handle people who are just rude.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I
who could
mean,
and could be very abusive too. And so, thankfully now I've grown and I can handle or at least put a barrier in that because even clients now, I still have clients who can be a little crazy.
yeah,
But trying to be understand that barrier is helpful.
yeah.
Yeah.
I there's that job really prepared me for a lot of stuff, and, it just it gave experiences and just life, like, it yeah, there's a lot. That job was really it was a great job in that it was a good supportive environment to a
Mhm.
degree where, like, it was very supportive, the team was supportive, and also it was a lot of people who had just graduated college, so a lot of immature type of
Immature.
people
Yeah.
there and leading teams, and so there was a lot of shenanigans there. I call them shenanigans.
Just
But when
shenanigans. Yeah.
you're, 20 how old are I think I was 21, 22 when I
Yeah.
started there,
Yeah.
you don't see that. You're like, "Oh, this is a firm," like
Fun and yeah.
yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
corporate job. But it was definitely an experience one where I learned a lot, for sure. And where I'm also really happy that I got connected to a lot of people and see, like, you never know, like, we're still connected with each other, and so you just never know
Yeah.
where your jobs will take you and who they connect you with
Mhm.
and the type of friendships and relationships that you build wherever you go, really.
Yeah. And one last thing I did want to say was just about how to support people in your life, whether it's like your friends or family members or people that you may have met at work. Because sometimes, especially I think young people that get out of undergrad and they start working, where do they find their community and what that supportive community means? Because sometimes you may have community that's not as supportive. And I feel like
Yeah.
certain jobs that I've been with, the people that I've connected with, they were my go-to. Like you
Mm,
can talk, you know,
yeah.
shit about
Yeah.
people at work and be like, no, this is confidential. Like it's
Yeah.
not gonna leave our like little connection
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
employees at work.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to start doing something. Like I don't want to just be stuck here
Yeah.
at that time. And so I think that helps because then you're finding people in a workplace that is being supportive and it's not just because you're forced into having a connection because you're coworkers together, right?
Yeah.
It's people that you can see outside of work
Mm,
and see that growth happen. Like, oh my gosh, it's been 10 something years and we've seen each other grow and
yeah.
you moved out of state, you were in New York for many years and then came back. And so for me, that is what I've been trying to seek out is more supportive community because they are the individuals that are going to be there for you
Yeah.
through all your ups and downs, right? Through all the
Yeah.
life events. And I think that's what helps.
Yeah. Yeah. If I think that's the one thing that I would say around when you're going to a job and you meet new people and meet new friends, it's like you really never know who can become that friend or friendship that's going to last and, like, support you and learn from and see each other grow. Like, you were that person for me, right? I've seen other people since then, not as much, but, you've seen their growth as well, but I haven't been connected, in the way that we are connected, but it's still very valuable to me, So
Yeah.
I'm just, like, happy that we were able to reconnect and go hiking, and you could get up early with me,
Yeah.
because like, nobody else would do that with me, but Other
I
than
am down
that,
anytime.
I know, like, and so I'm grateful.
And then you avoid crowds. I just don't understand. In LA, you need to go early. You avoid crowds. In the summer, it's much better earlier in the morning. If it's too hot, get,
Exactly.
later in the day.
Exactly, exactly. I don't like
Yeah.
heat and I don't like crowds. And so
Yeah.
don't ever take me.
You know,
I will never go to Coachella.
oh gosh, yeah. I remember people that are at that job would go to Coachella.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I'm really happy we talked about this.
Yeah.
I think we had some really good perspectives. And thank you, Durdana, for having this chat
Thank
with me.
Gosh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I think that that's what I really wanna create is just be able to have chats with my friends and, like, what do they think about this and how do they do it? And make this fun for
Yeah.
me, and so that is the way that I'm incorporating consistency into this podcast is before it was like, "Okay, I got to set up an interview, I gotta record, and I got to edit, and I have to put all this stuff out, and I have to do it every Monday, and that's like, I have to do that. And now I'm like, okay, yeah, I still want to do that, but I want to make it fun, and I actually get to connect with the people that I want to connect with, right? And use it as a
Mm.
tool to connect
Yeah.
with the people I want to connect with and hear their perspective and still hopefully provide some good information or perspective or knowledge for people listening. So, yeah, I'm just happy you did it with me. Were you nervous?
Oh, this is a bunch of fun. We're talking about just a topic that affects everyone, and so
Mm.
it's easy to talk about. I didn't even prepare for anything. I
No, me
remember I
neither.
messaged you, and I was like, I didn't prepare for anything. Let's just talk. Sometimes you have good discussion.
Yeah.
Just from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted it to be. It's like, I'm not really thinking about, oh, it's like, I'm not trying to be super rigid with the episodes that I have with my friends. It's like
Mm.
wherever we go and how we talk about it, what their perspective is. And that's what it is, folks. That's what it is. So I guess we'll see. This is, like just me being trying to create consistency around a goal, which is I do want to post this twice a week, but we'll see. We're trying things out. But it doesn't at the end of the day, what I'm glad that I was able to have the opportunity to do is to connect. So I'm always happy to see you and connect with you.
Yes.
Let's go hiking soon.
Yes, I am always down in the morning.
Yeah, in the morning. And then, whenever you wanna hang out, other than hiking out too, I'm always here. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you, Beatrice.